Have you ever experienced a time where you were purposely rejected or left out of something?
Sure.
And how did that make you feel?
Not good.
Right. So today we want to talk about how to help raise our children to be includers and why that's important. Partially because we don't want people to feel probably the way that we've all felt before in being excluded, but also because it's a really important piece in living out the gospel.
It's like all those years when we were in school when I wanted you to notice me and you just completely ignored me.
Yep. So let's get into that. Hey, I'm Andrea Warnock.
I'm Nathan Warnock, and you've reached us for Family Friday. This is a show that we do every Friday, usually comes out on Thursday, where we talk about God's design for our families, for how we as parents can raise our families, prepare our kids to be launched like arrows out into the world once they leave our homes.
Today, we want to talk about, I don't know why I said that so weird. We want to talk about how to raise includers. Children who want to include everybody else, aren't picking on people, how we really try to model that for our kids,
right.
And hopefully raise them to be people that include all types of other people.
Right, and I have to apologize for the open about you not noticing me. Everybody who knows us knows you wanted me from the very moment that you saw me, and so that was a completely made
If you don't know
story.
our story, we went to the same elementary and junior high school together, so we've known each other.
She wanted me.
We've known each other for a long time, and we hung out in the same friend group, so we've been friends for 30 years.
Is that how long
it's been 30 years.
Wow.
That's crazy. Anyway, so
that's a long time.
We're
only 28.
I'm not sure your math works on that. So we've been friends for a long time, and we started dating in our early 20s, or when we were 20, I guess. So
yeah.
But when we were in school together, we were in the same friend group, and actually a couple of my closest friends, you can't even say dated, went out with Nathan when we were...
They held my hand at the
when
skate,
we were
at
young.
the skate party.
Right, you know all that stuff.
No big deal.
But Nathan and I never thought of each other that way ever. So that's the reality of the situation. Please, that's the reality of the situation. Which, but we were friends. Well, we were always
totally.
friends, and
totally.
so we kind of have a fun story. But the reality is, neither of us thought about each other in that way. So
right. So I'm super excited to get into this because there's a pandemic going on right now. I don't know if you knew that or not, babe. But there's a pandemic of people, young people, who are completely consumed with themselves.
Yeah, and kind of just wanting status or whatever it is at the expense of other people.
Right.
And we see that in adults for sure, but we see it a lot in kids. And it breaks my heart the way kids treat other kids.
Yeah.
Not just in the obvious, like, I don't want you to play with me kind of thing, or the bullying, but even in the little nitpicking of, one of my friends said her kindergarten daughter was picked on by a 5th grader because she had like an Elsa backpack or something like that. That's so sad to me. And that sort of feeling of the child lasts for a long time. Those, as an adult, we can look back and be like, no big deal. But really at the time, those things are devastating to a child and really hurt. And so being picked on like that or being left out or whatever really comes down to a selfishness. But it's something that we have tried to be intentional with our children in teaching them to be includers, even with the people that they don't really like, legitimately don't like.
Which is okay.
Totally.
We don't have to
we talk about that too.
Right. There's a difference between liking someone and showing love to that someone.
Yep.
With regards to how we think about things.
Right.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk about that.
Great.
We've had some of our own examples. Our kids have had some examples. Jackson, when he was, even before he was in school, he was at a preschool, and one of the kids was just a turd to Jackson for weeks, and we just kept telling Jackson, the kid wasn't like harming him, but he was just a turd,
just being mean,
right? And we just told Jackson, for now, just be really kind to him and don't try to lash out at him or whatever. And it took weeks, probably 3 or 4 weeks, which is an eternity in a 4-year-old's world.
Yeah, exactly.
And that one kid finally came around and became a good friend of Jackson's and stopped being a turd to him.
Right.
And so it's fun for Jax to see how that worked, and how important it is to really love on somebody even when they don't deserve it.
Right. I mean, Jackson plays sports, and this has been a thing for him on his sports teams over the year, too, where there's been people that just, for whatever reason, weren't kind to him, either initially or ongoing, and he's had to kind of learn to take the high road of being an includer of that person and continuing to be kind to them and invite them, into relationship with him, even when it seemed that they didn't want to.
Yep.
I mean, he's seen the benefits of that.
I had a friend group in high school that I was good friends with that just totally rejected me at some point, and it was incredibly hurtful. And so all of those examples and things that Nathan has lived through and all that have certainly helped positively or negatively shape us. But they also are things that we can point to and say, I've learned a lot of lessons from that, and I want to help teach my kids.
Right. So along that line, other than just general niceness, why is it important for us to teach our kids to include others or to watch out for those that have been rejected and to choose to do the opposite to those people and be kind to them?
Well, I would say the first and the greatest reason is because we are representatives of the Lord. We've chosen to have relationship with the Lord. We've chosen to proclaim our citizenship with God, and that's our ultimate identity. And so to live that out, I want to be somebody who's the phrase Jesus with skin on. I want people to experience the Lord through me.
Yeah.
And the Great Commission is, we find that in Matthew 28. So Jesus gives us, he gave his disciples the Great Commission, which then we are his disciples as well. So that goes on to us as well. But the Great Commission is found in Matthew 28, starting in verse 18, goes through 19. And Jesus came to it and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all my commands I have given you. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So the greatest reason to be includers is because we are called to make disciples. And you'll see there, he didn't say of just these nations or leave out these people or whatever. We know, and Jesus lived his life like this. He wants everyone included. So if we're representing the Lord with our lives, should we ever be excluding other people? Should we ever be picking on somebody to their exclusion?
Right.
That's the greatest reason that we teach our kids to be includers, because we want them to show Jesus to other people. We want them to be a good example of the Lord in other people's lives. So
it's good.
And there's no limit or exclusion to the people that we are called to preach the gospel to, be the gospel to. So, and then also Matthew 4:19 talks about being fishers of men.
Yeah.
And that job is more important than our earthly jobs. It's more important than our selfish desires. It's more important than our autonomy.
Yeah, in fact, that's exactly what that chapter in Mark 4 points out. We were just reading this for our Bible study, and I believe it was James and John that were fishing. And that's when Jesus came to them and said, put down your nets and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Fishing was their job.
Right.
And what he was telling them was, I've got a greater job for you. Rather than being includers of fish for your own benefit and gainful employment, come follow me and we'll be includers of men.
Right. Yep. So being fishers of men. And we see in the New Testament that Jesus' life was lived in order to bring people into relationship with the Lord.
Right.
So he included everyone regardless of status, finances, whether they were male or female, how sinful they were.
Right.
There's so many examples where he bucked the social norms of who
right.
he interacted with in order to spread the gospel, in order that people might have a relationship with him and know him.
Right.
And so he is our ultimate example. So then if he was doing that, we should be doing that too, regardless of how annoying the person is or their social status in school or what they can bring to us. Any of that sort of thing. How weird they are. We're called to include them.
Right.
We're called to love them still.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
So there is an important note with that, though, that I would say, and we talk to our kids about this, especially when it comes up in circumstances that they're living out, that including doesn't always mean doesn't always mean intimacy. I mean, or
that's a
friendship.
Awkward word, maybe, but
right.
But
right.
I think that's the right word.
So you can include people, and of course not pick on people and all that sort of thing, while not having close relationship with them. There's a great example. One of our kids had a friend who kind of ended up really frustrating and hurting one of our children. The friend was making some decisions that were off the cuff, but were happening time and time again, and they really hurt our child. But that friend still wanted to be a friend. That friend was just making bad decisions. Anyway, so we told our kid, you know what? Probably not good to have that friend on your inner circle. Like
right.
being a close friend with that kid, letting that friend play with you a lot, whatever. But you also don't want him to feel like you've rejected him or that he's less than or whatever. And so having a conversation that these things have hurt me, I don't appreciate that, whatever, is good. And still playing with that person is great, but maybe not as much as you were, and maybe not having a super close relationship with him. So including people doesn't always look like close friendship or intimacy, like you said.
Right. Right. We all have different levels of friendship. In fact, this is a really important thing to teach our kids, because they're going to need to make decisions about how close they get to certain people. And part of that decision you want to be, sort of the show me your friends, I'll show you your future thing.
Yeah.
And our kids need to be prepared to be able to make that decision without going, you're bad for me, I don't ever want to talk to you again.
Right. Yeah, and I'll make another note too. There are times where you can't include somebody in your life at all for safety reasons or whatever, and that this has nothing to do with that. You're not saying, I just don't like you, right, or you don't serve the purposes that I want or whatever, and so I'm kicking you out.
Yeah, that's someone that has made decisions to disqualify themselves from relationship with you.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point, babe. That's a good point. So practically, what do we do? How do we teach this?
Yeah, so practically teaching kids to be includers, of course, we're always going to go to the Bible and talk about what does the Bible say about how we have a relationship with other people. The Bible talks a lot about, if at all possible, live at peace with others.
Right.
We see, again, Jesus' life was lived for other people, to bring the gospel to other people regardless of who they were and their status.
Right.
And so we need to be giving those examples to our kids, reading the Bible with our kids with that thought in mind of including and not excluding, and sometimes even not excluding in thought. So maybe you're including somebody in in what you're doing, but you're having these side conversations about how weird this person is or whatever. Really, really having an exclusionary, having an exclusionary mindset about them, but yet actually, like, physically including them on things is still excluding them.
Yeah.
It's not the right thing.
Yeah, that's right.
As parents, we need to be modeling behavior. And you're probably thinking, I'm not picking on somebody's Elsa backpack. I'm not excluding people.
You know who you are.
You know what? We do it in our house too. The way that we talk about people, the way that we maybe give advice to our kids about certain situations. I'm going to have you tell about a situation that wasn't, quote, excluding somebody necessarily, but it helped to teach the mindset that we're trying to teach our kids. So we were at Mahoney's Spray Park, and this dad started yelling at Jackson. And I want you to talk about that for a second, but then the mindset that you gave Jackson. Do you remember?
Well, I remember the situation, and you'll have to help me remember what Jackson and I talked about. But there's a spray park was it at Mahoney? Or was it at... Well, it doesn't matter. It was at a state park. And it was a really cool spray park. There was about 7,000 people there the day that we were there. And let's see, Lincoln was very young, so it must have been...
A long time. Oh, wait, a while ago.
Yeah, quite a while ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago now.
And so Jackson was there playing, and it was all going fine. And then Jackson, they had those little guns where you can shoot water at each other, and they had 4 or 5 of them positioned around so everybody could shoot each other. And so he was shooting a kid that was shooting him, and it was fine. They were all playing back and forth. Well, of course, predictably, one of those kids all of a sudden decided he didn't like this game very much. And he ran and told his dad, and his dad, I didn't see it happen, but Jackson came over and he was just crushed. Apparently this dad had gotten in his face about shooting his son in the head with the water gun, which is of course what all those boys were doing, right? And so Jackson was very upset, as you would be, having an adult man get in your face as a 9-year-old.
Yeah, which an adult guy shouldn't be doing.
He was really upset. So what did we... Remind me what we talked about.
So my reaction was... what I was saying is... An adult should never talk to some random kid about that, especially when we're at a spray park.
In anger.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous. Why would he do that? Blah, blah, blah. And what Nathan said is... You know what, Jackson... What did you say? Something about... I think he's probably looking out for his son, and maybe he probably doesn't realize the actual situation.
Yeah.
I think he's reacting out of something that is untrue about you, and maybe his son told him, like, exaggerated the story or whatever, and he definitely reacted in a way that wasn't right, but there's other factors going on. And I think Nathan had seen the guy, like, I don't know, deal with something annoying a little while before that or whatever. And he's like, we don't know the full story.
Well, yeah, and his son had some form of mental disability. You could just tell that he had some form of disability.
Oh, that's right.
And so I think maybe what I had told to Jackson is, he probably deals with people treating his son unfairly regularly.
Yeah.
And Jackson wasn't doing it. I mean, to Jackson's credit, and the rest of those boys, whoever they were that were playing, they were all including him.
Right. I'm sure that he deals with things that are very difficult with his child, and let's have some understanding and grace for him, and just watch out for this kid in the future. He might not want to be shot in the head anymore. We want to honor his situation and, just let it go with his dad. If he does it again, we'll certainly deal with it, but let's have grace for him, love him from afar. Yes, if it needs to be dealt with, we'll deal with it, But rather than thinking of him as just a bad guy, I love your attitude of we're not going to think of him as a bad guy. He's just looking out for his son and probably did that in the wrong way. So that was a mindset that I thought was so good of we don't always know the full story. And there's so many situations that we could apply that to of we don't always know the full story. So let's give a lot of grace.
Totally.
Yeah. I think talking to our kids about appreciating differences rather than seeing that as something that's bad is a great thing.
That's super important and super biblical.
Yep.
Right? I mean, we're all different people, but we're all human beings made in the image of God.
Yep.
And we should appreciate our differences.
Practically touching base with our kids and finding out what's going on with them.
Yep.
You know, when somebody picks on them at school, rather than just saying, yeah, that's part of life or whatever, really talking about that and how that makes you feel. And we don't want to make other people feel that way. How can we include others? How can we always be, rather than being self-focused, how can we be others focused? And then I think a really great way of doing this too is from a really young age, teaching our kids to talk to lots of different people. Helping them to be comfortable with a wide range of people, age, places that you're at, teaching them to, order their own food, which may sound like, how does that have to do with includers?
When you're at a restaurant.
When you're at a restaurant, yeah. Just teaching them how to be comfortable with a variety of people, how to be comfortable being themselves with a variety of people.
Right.
Helping them to see outside of themselves.
Yeah.
Helping them to ask about other people's lives and be interested in other people. Teaching them eye-to-eye contact and handshakes and all that sort of thing helps us to be comfortable just with a variety of people, which I think then sort of gets rid of those thoughts of that person's weird or whatever, because we're willing to just hop in and communicate with that person and be interested in that person. And there's so many times where you think one thing about somebody, but when you start to get to know them, it's not true at all.
Right.
And so teaching our kids, let's talk to other people, let's get to know them, let's not be all about ourselves, is a great way of kind of getting rid of that judgmental mindset.
Yeah, I mean, what you're really talking about here is teaching our kids at a young age to respect other people. Mm-hmm. And that is an important part for including, because respect by the nature of it means you're thinking about someone other than you.
Right. I can't make that go. Anyway, another practical thing, which is the last one, is when we're out with our kids, including other people when it makes sense. So like if you're at the park, including other kids in your game of tag or whatever, playing with your toys. I can't tell you how many times we've had toys at the park and we're like, yeah, we brought them, so they should everybody can play with them, and that helps our kids with sharing too. But getting games going with other people that are around at the park, just including other people when you're out.
Yeah, and as parents, we can take a lead in that. You can force the issue with that a little bit. Because our kids can be self-focused, particularly if you have a number of kids that will play with each other. So as parents, keeping an eye out to see a young boy or young girl that are kind of on the edges, not having anyone to play with, to be able to say, hey, either grab one of your kids if they're old enough and say, hey, I'd like you to go ask that little boy or little girl to come play with you. Or just yourself going to their parents or going to them directly if it's appropriate and going, hey, our kids are playing over here with these toys. Would you like to come play with them? Mm-hmm. And then bringing them over and going, hey guys, this is Sally Mae. She'd love to play with your toys with you. Will you play with her?
Yeah.
And force the issue a little bit. It's good for our kids.
Yeah, so the hope is that we're raising kids who are includers, but the most important thing is raising kids that are taking that Great Commission, particularly when they're adults, and going out and making disciples.
Yep.
And not caring who they're making disciples with, but that it's knowing that the gospel is for everybody and Jesus is for everybody and Jesus was for everybody. So I need to be loving everyone as Jesus would too, regardless.
It's good, baby.
Yep. Anything else?
No, it's great. Thanks for leading in that.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. As we talked about raising kids that are includers, and as adults, we need to remember this too, that we need to be people that are includers. So thanks for joining us on Family Friday. If you are available on Sunday evenings, and we do a live on Sunday evenings at 8:30 Central, we'd love for you to join us and ask any questions that you've got. Until then, remember, God is for your family. Hey, thanks for joining us on Marriage by Design. If you were impacted by this video, like it by hitting the thumbs up below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and once you subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can be notified when new episodes release.
Excellent. Also, one of the huge pillars of our show is interactivity between us and you. So we would love you to comment down in the comments below if you have thoughts about this video, or if you have questions or other things you'd like to see considered in the future. In addition, if you'd like, you can email us. That's marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram @marriagebydesignpodcast, or you can find us on Facebook by searching Marriage by Design Podcast. Finally, if you want to, you can tweet at us. We do have a Twitter account that is @MarriageXDesign. Thanks, and have a great day.